gets so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? Yeah. When I get so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? I can't stop now. I got too many miles to go. I'm just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's it taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I'll sing my song. Just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I sing my song. Know that you're on my trail. I'm gonna run you down. Don't you know that I'm on your tail? Make those mountains fall, as long as my feet don't fail. When it gets so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? Yeah. When I get so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? I can't stop now. I got too many miles to go. I'm just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's it taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I'll sing my song. Just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's taking so long. When the sun goes down, That's when I sing my song. Gonna run you down, don't you know that you're on my trail? I'm gonna run you down, don't you know that I'm on your tail? Make those mountains fall, as long as my feet don't fail. When it gets so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? Yeah. When I get so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? I can't stop now. I got too many miles to go. I'm just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wonder what's it taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I sing my song. Just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wonder what's taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I sing my song. Don't you know that you're on my trail? I'm gonna run you down, don't you know that I'm on your tail? Make those mountains fall, as long as my feet don't fail. When it gets so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? Yeah. When I get so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? I can't stop now. I got too many miles to go. I'm just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I sing my song. Just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I sing my song. Don't you know that you're on my trail? I'm gonna run you down. Don't you know that I'm on your tail? Make those mountains fall, as long as my feet don't fail. When it gets so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? Yeah. When I get so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? I can't stop now. I got too many miles to go. I'm just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I sing my song. Just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I sing my song. down. Don't you know that you're on my trail? I'm gonna run you down. Don't you know that I'm on your tail? Make those mountains fall. As long as my feet don't fail. When I get so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? Yeah. When I get so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? I can't stop now.
Hey, everybody. We are so excited to have you here for our Crewing Hard Rock 2024 panel. We have a few questions that have been submitted from folks, and we're going to get to those in a bit. If you are watching on YouTube, we would invite you to comment in the chat if you have questions for our panel, specifically about crewing. We would love to hear what you would like to know. We have a bunch of experts here. I am Chris Twiggs, 16-time hard rocker, member of the board of directors, and guy who is just thrilled and humbled to be coming to you today with our panel of experts. I'm going to give our experts an opportunity to go around and introduce themselves. And again, while they're doing that, if you take a second and type your questions into the chat on YouTube if you have them. And we're going to start with who I started with a second ago as I was introducing our panelists to each other, Rebecca Clark.
I'm Rebecca Clark. My husband is Blake Wood. I've been involved with the run since 1994 and probably crewed maybe 22 times or so. I didn't actually crew the first 2 years. I had to drive my kids off to Girl Scout camp while Blake was running. So his parents crewed in those years. And I've been just helping out at race headquarters and runner tracking and that sort of thing in addition to crewing.
Absolutely. Rebecca has a reputation for having everything you need. So she mentioned earlier, she's only crewed Blake on purpose, but lots of other people kind of along the way who have been able to come to her for help. I would imagine my crew has probably come to you for help at one point during one of my early hard rocks in particular. Then we have Amaya Koblenz. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Amaya Koblenz. I'm the daughter of Twiggs, and I have been crewing at Hard Rock since I can remember. Yeah, a little over 10 times, I would say.
Fantastic, fantastic. And we have in the corner there, Faith Twiggs. Tell us about yourself, Faith.
Okay. I've been crewing since I was probably 15, but I've been going to Hard Rocks for as long as I can remember. I'm Chris's daughter. So yeah, happy to be here.
Absolutely. Faith was my she got elevated to crew chief on the last Hard Rock that I did. And sadly, Faith will be unable to crew me this summer at Hard Rock as she is fulfilling her duties to the U.S. Army in South Korea. And we also are joined by Yassine Daboon. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Yassine.
Hey, everybody. My name is Yassine Daboon. I have never crewed Hard Rock, but I know I am going to in the future. But I have crewed a lot of other races. I've been doing ultras since 2007, pretty, regularly every year, big mountain races. And I've crewed a bunch of my friends at various different mountain races and ultras. And I just did my first Hard Rock in 2023, and it was an amazing experience, and I can't wait to get back.
And we heard from Yassine on our Hard Talk podcast. Hopefully, people that are watching this have been listening to the podcast, and the next episode to come out will be with Yassine. And one of the things that my co-host Dan and I noticed when we were going through and looking at Yassine's splits from last year, he spent very little time in the two biggest, most popular aid stations in that direction. He spent almost no time at all at Animas Forks, spent almost no time at all at Uray. And I told him, and you'll hear this on the podcast, I told him it either meant that he had this complete disregard for his own safety by blowing through those aid stations, or it meant he had an amazing crew. And he said that's what it meant. So he's going to talk to us a little bit about it, what it meant to have an amazing crew. And actually, I want to start with you, Yassine, because I know you said that you're not going to be able to stick around the entire time with us. So while people are taking the opportunity to put their questions in the chat on YouTube, can you tell us a little bit about who crewed you and what they did that really stood out to you as giving you the support you needed at those aid stations?
Totally. Well, first of all, I mean, kudos to the crew, because I always say it's not about me, it's about we. This is a team sport kind of thing, and that's why I love to give back to my friends and family members that are doing ultras. But really touches my heart that your daughter has crewed for you as well, because my daughter was also part of my crew at Hard Rock, and my wife was there, and about 3 or 4 friends from Oregon where I live. And just like you said, I definitely did not blow through those big aid stations. My crew had a blanket set up as I came into the area, and they had everything to my instruction laid out so I could see it. Because one thing that I always tell people is, like, don't come up to me and start rattling off, like asking me, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Like, my brain's fried, right? So I like to have everything laid out so I can see what I might want visually. And so that was a really important thing as far as the crew. Instead of everybody firing questions at you and you trying to like be overstimulated, like I just came out of like Engineer Pass, right? I'm like, I've been out in the wilderness, and then all of a sudden I'm in the big town of Uray, right? So that's one of the main components, is really just having things laid out for me and not like firing 100 questions at me when I come in and my brain's fried.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that perspective. And I agree. It is so nice to have family that's there looking out for you. I've enjoyed having so many of my family members there. Rebecca, first couple of years you weren't able to crew, but you've have ever since then. You're definitely a staple out there. What do you feel like is the key to making sure that Blake has everything that he needs out there at Hard Rock?
Well, we spend, before the run, we go through his race plan, like where he expects to be, what time at each aid station. And then we just make an aid station by aid station checklist. So there are things that he's going to check. There are clothes he might change. There's gear he'll definitely want. And we have that all sorted out ahead of time. So when I get to an aid station, the first thing I do is get out the checklist and I gather all those things in a small place. So like Yassine said, you can see them all. I mean, I know these things will be in the gearbox and these things will be in the clothes box, but now I'm down to a specific aid station. So I take them all out and lay them out in a box top. And so I know exactly where each thing is that he might need.
Yeah.
Conversations ahead of time and planning are really important.
Absolutely. Amaya, you do the same sort of thing? You have a checklist for your dad?
Yeah, definitely. We have a printed checklist. But yeah, same as what everyone has said, just preparation ahead of time.
Yeah. Now, have you crewed at other ultras and other hundreds besides Hard Rock?
I've crewed at other ultras, but Hard Rock has been the only 100 that I've crewed at.
Okay. Is there anything, I guess, the fact that Hard Rock is 100 is one big difference, but are there any other things you can think of that are particular about Hard Rock that potential new crews, maybe this is the first time their runner is doing Hard Rock? Is there something you can think of that they need to know about Hard Rock in particular?
Yeah, I think one thing that's unique about Hard Rock is how spaced out the aid stations are for crew. You really have to plan ahead of time driving on the highway to get to the aid stations that you want, and prioritizing certain aid stations, and just knowing the timing really well so that you can get back to Silverton and then also leave to the next one in time. So just again, that preparation ahead of time, looking up how long it will take you, making a plan so that you know exactly what you need to do.
Yeah, yeah. Faith, one of the questions that we received ahead of time, people were wondering what to you is the biggest challenge for crewing Hard Rock. And I know you've crewed me at other hundreds as well. You actually kind of like Hard Rock, at least that's what you said the last time. But what is there anything? What would you say is the biggest challenge for crewing Hard Rock in particular?
Definitely timing things and just knowing exactly where you are at what times, because a lot of situations where you don't have service, so even though you can track your runner, you can't always track him, like at Animus Forks. I don't know exactly where you are, exactly where you're coming in, but I can guess within 2 hours. So, it's like a big hurry up and wait game. Like other ultras, like Keys, we had service the whole time. We knew exactly where you were. Probably just the lack of being able to track your runner and having to get places hours before you may need to, or 10 minutes before you may need to.
Yeah, yeah. Yassine, one of the questions that we got earlier, and I think this is something you can speak to as a runner. Somebody asked, how do I keep my runner from thinking I should bring 30 pounds of gear to every aid station? Did you over prepare for the aid stations, or were you a little kinder to your crew than this person is expecting?
Yeah, I was pretty good, although we did rent an RV for Hard Rock, so we had the capacity to have a lot more stuff. But I also the year 2023 race, it didn't have your like typical rainstorms that you might get. We had like hot weather, which was interesting. I feel like it, from what I hear, kind of uncharacteristic too, where we had a lot of snow travel, but we also had a lot of heat, kind of like the fire and ice year, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I didn't think that I was going to be like pouring water on my head at Hard Rock and like cooling myself down. So that made it a little bit easier on the crew in some regards, because but they did hand off like my warm, or my, like, I had this like waterproof jacket suit that that I wore that Joe Grant was making fun of me up at Kroger's canteen for. Joe and I are old friends here from Portland, but I showed up in this all full white Columbia suit for the night section, and my crew was able to hand that off to me at Uray, and so yeah, I didn't give them too many. Hey, Dale.
Oh, Dale was there for a second.
Yes.
There he is. Dale Garland has joined us, run director for Hard Rock.
Hi, everybody.
How are you tonight?
Good. I'm doing very well, Chris. Thanks. Go ahead, Christine. I was listening to you.
Yeah, your audio is a little bit choppy there, but we're glad that you've joined us, Dale.
Yeah, I really just tell like my crew, really just, it's so nice just to have their presence and to have like to get a big hug. I also get really tight for some reason in my trap muscles. So my wife, she knows we have this, like, we call it our magic oil, and it's she does the magic oil on my trap, sometimes on my legs if needed, and she's done this for several hundreds for me, so we kind of got it down now, where I'll sit down in a lawn chair and she'll get the magic oil out and kind of rub out the quads a little bit, and then the traps a little bit, and then like you said, seeing your daughter Faith, see my daughter Farah at the aid stations always fills my heart too.
Yeah,
I like to try to keep it as simple as possible.
Good. I think that's probably good. Rebecca, is your crew philosophy to keep it simple as well, or do you have the 30 pounds of stuff at every aid station?
We make a pretty concerted effort to figure out, in Uray and Telluride, it's easy to bring in a lot of gear. But if you make it out to Chapman or certainly Animas Forks or any of the ones where you're hiking a ways, then you want to try and keep your gear minimal. So those are just aid stations where Blake might plan. He's not gonna change shoes there. So we're not bringing shoes, 2 miles up the road. And then we try and keep as much of the other stuff. If it's something that might be in the aid station, we won't bring it, that sort of thing. So we definitely put a lot of thought into that.
Yeah. The aid station, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that's one of the reasons why you don't have to bring the kitchen sink, because the aid station is there. Maya, when you get to an aid station, what is your normal routine?
Yeah, so something is happening off in the distance. I'm so sorry if you can hear the background noise. That's the online world, right? Yeah, so once we get to the aid station, it depends on the timing. If we're there a little early, of course, crew, please try to stay like out of the aid station grounds. And then once you're thinking like, okay, my runner is coming in, we stake out a little section, get the drop bag, put the drop bag out, and like was said multiple times before, we lay everything out so that you can see it, because a lot of the times if the runner can't see it, they're going to forget about it. So we lay everything out, and then honestly get something in preparation, usually like some kind of soup from the aid station that that your runner will want pretty much immediately. And then it's just a waiting game, get the binoculars out.
Yeah, absolutely. Faith, what would you say is the key to figuring out how long your runner should stay in an aid station?
It's definitely a lot based off of what you guys have gone through ahead of time. So I know there have been years when you have more of an ambitious goal for when you want to finish. So if we're running behind and we're not getting to the stations when we plan to, it's going to be a little more rushed. Going to be a little more like get out, get your food, don't sit down, get out. And then it's just kind of knowing your runner. I mean, like, I know you and how you react to the cold. And if it is cold and we put a blanket on you, that's just going to kind of not help anything. So we have to get you out of there and get you back moving when you're cold. We don't want you stopping. And, but if there's some kind of thing happen, like you fell, whatever, you may want to stay a little longer just so we can make sure that you're okay and there's not anything that needs to be assessed or anything that we need to bring to the next aid station to help any kind of injury you might have gotten. So it's mainly just like based off of how you know your runner and your plan ahead of time.
Yeah, good. Yassine, is there anything that your crew, and they're probably not going to watch this, so it's okay, right? Nobody's going to tell them, so it's okay for you to be honest here. Is there anything your crew didn't do that you would have them do next time you run Hard Rock?
Actually, as far as Hard Rock goes, they did a great job. Honestly, I can honestly say they did everything to get me around that loop, especially because I had a sprained ankle at mile 30. And so they were really trying to get me to stop and like maybe tape it up and things like that, which was great. But I declined. I was just like, I'd rather just keep moving. I feel like they did such a great job. Honestly, I would totally throw them under the bus if I had an excuse to. But I was going to say, just to add one other thing, this is something I picked up when I started running ultras on the East Coast, and I used to read books about Blake and look up to these, veterans in the sport. But I picked this up from some old heads on the East Coast, and they had these big fishing tackle boxes. If you ever seen a big tackle box, they have all of the trays that are sectioned out, and they have, you pull it up and it's like multi-layered and leveled. And I was like, that's brilliant. So I actually was in my garage recently and I saw the Ultra box, the tackle box in there. and it's got extra socks in there. It's got like Tums. It's got, everything from, bug spray to little towels and things. And it's just, it's very easy to carry around, much like a fisher person would, carry all their tackle and so that's another really transportable like way to have sectioned off gear for the aid stations.
Yeah. I think it's been neat to see how different people transport their things to and from their vehicles. And I think there's a lot of communication that goes from crew to crew, learning as people are coming along in the sport. And I saw that in triathlon back when I used to do a lot of those as well. You kind of, you learn the ropes from people that have been there for a while. Rebecca, we got a question that I think you hopefully are best positioned to answer. Somebody in the chat on YouTube is asking if there's any place where crew can camp or at least sleep on the course, thinking perhaps like at near Animas Forks or Sherman as they're waiting on their runners.
If you're talking about sleeping in your car, that's,
I assume that's what they're talking about is during the run.
So the waiting area down in the town of Eureka, where they want you to wait until your runner's on the way before you head up to Animas Forks, that's a great place. And it's big, wide open parking lot, and there's even an outhouse there. So if you're there for a while, you have somewhere environmentally friendly to go. And that's probably the best choice, I think, for Animas Forks. No, over in Sherman, this last year was the first time I've ever been to the Sherman aid station, because I would not ever drive over the road over Cinnamon Pass. And so I drove all the way around last year. But I think someone else should probably talk to that, but I think there are places where you can just pull off the road and sleep for a little bit in, little pullouts and things, not, if you're talking about setting up a tent, that might be a little harder. Although I think there are campgrounds in that area, although they probably would be full in July, I'm thinking.
Yeah, they probably would be, but there is plenty of room to park over at Sherman,
That's
close to, along the road and closer to the aid station. So I think if you're talking about sleeping in the vehicle while you're waiting on the runner, that's definitely it's easy enough to do.
Well, I also have two things I wanted to say about that since you brought it up.
Good.
I would strongly recommend to crews is if you can come a couple of days early and drive to the aid stations you plan to go to. You can find out if you're actually comfortable on the road and if your vehicle is suited for the road. There's a lot of different flavors of four-wheel drive road, and different people who will say, oh, that's an easy road, or, oh, that's a disaster, don't ever go there. And you need to find out for yourself, can you do that? And also it's really useful, even going into your rain and Telluride, to find out exactly where the aid station is in the daylight. Actually how far you have to go. It's that Telluride's all the way at the end of town. But it's nice to find that out before it's the middle of the night and you're scared and stressed out and, wondering where your runner is and where's the aid station, and then you park and you find out you're still 2 miles away. And it's really nice to find them ahead of time and know where they are, know where the parking is for that aid station, because the closest parking lot you might not be allowed to park in.
Good point.
So
I just remembered something when you're done. Are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. I just remembered something. When I got down to Telluride last year, they were sleeping in the car because I got down there quicker than they thought.
Oh, yeah.
So I will throw them under the bus. Yes, they should have been waiting for me.
Well, in Telluride, they could see your spot too. They should have been able to.
I know. I got down there just before, like maybe an hour before sunrise, and I was like, "Where are they?" And they're like, "Oh man, I think they're sleeping in the car." And then somebody ran over and grabbed them, and they brought everything out.
Wow!
Just to give them a hard time, though.
Wow! Amaya, we had a question that somebody asked, and this is definitely a good question for people that have been hanging around aid stations for a while. Are there any aid stations that you can think of, or any crew access points you can think of, where the bugs are particularly bad and crews need to be aware of?
Oh, that is a really good question.
Yeah, it is. It
If
is.
anyone else thinks of one off the top of their head, feel free to jump in.
I know where the bad spots
Chapman.
are as a runner.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a runner leaving Chapman
Chapman's the worst.
in the clockwise direction. Counterclockwise, not so much, but in the clockwise direction, leaving Chapman is bad. But I don't know if they're bad for the people there at the aid stations. But Rebecca, you're saying bugs are bad at
Every
Chapman?
time I've waited at Chapman, you need a lot of insect repellent for that
Okay.
aid station.
Good.
Yeah,
Any place else
honestly,
you can
just
think of?
bring insect repellent with
Yeah.
you wherever you go.
Yeah. In terms of the things near the aid stations, and Faith, this is I think a good question for you and Amaya too, really. Some people are going to be crewing, and Rebecca, you too. Some people are going to be crewing with kids around, right? There are going to be kids there. What should they bring the kids to the aid stations? And if they do, what do you do with the kids? What is there for kids to do at these aid stations or near these aid stations? Faith, what do you think first?
I think that not every aid station do kids need to go to, like Animus Forks, the ones that are going to be difficult drives, probably, and you're not going to have any iPad reception or anything. There's nothing to entertain them. Probably don't need to bring the kids there, but like Telluride and Ouray, the ones that are in town, there's definitely, like Telluride has a little skate park area if your kids are that age, or you can just bring a ball. There's a little playground right there at Telluride. Telluride's definitely the best one if you want any aid station to bring your kids, because your runner's also probably going to come through in the daylight end, for most people. And then also at Ouray also has a playground right there, and it's right next to the community pool. Of course, a lot of runners are coming in after that's closed in the nighttime, but yeah, I'd say Telluride and Ouray, probably bring your kids. Any other aid station, they're probably going to get bored. Probably not best to bring them there.
Yeah. Amaya, you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. Those two are great ones to bring your kids. Aid stations at night, typically, just for the sake of the crew, I think if you can have someone watching your kids back wherever you're staying, might be a good idea, just that you can focus on getting to those aid stations and helping your runner. And then I think for other ones, maybe sit down with your kids, tell them what's going on, and then otherwise, I love seeing kids at aid stations. Being at an aid station when I was a kid was truly such an amazing experience, and it makes it just an intergenerational thing. And maybe give your kid a job, outside of the aid station, but bring them. It's fun to make it a thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
You seen as a runner, was that something you really liked seeing?
Oh
seeing
yeah. Oh, absolutely. Anytime I ever see kids at aid stations or at races, I'm always giving them high fives and stuff like that, trying to keep the levity, keep the childlike passion. But yeah, I would agree with the Ouray. I had them because I did counterclockwise, so I, set up. I told them to go there early. Don't go to Animus Forks. My other crew members went to Animus Forks. My wife and daughter and another friend went to Ouray early in the day to go enjoy the hot spring water park pool area, and then go out to have dinner, and then finally I'll eventually make my way down there. But so yeah, just to add that element of having fun and experience in the town of Ouray or Telluride, like you said, and not just being like stuck out in the middle of like a dirt road somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a question, and I'm gonna address this, and I'm gonna invite Dale if he has a further clarification. But somebody asks on YouTube, what about dogs at aid stations? And I do know that the policy was just clarified. I don't know that information has gone out to runners yet, but dogs are fine. My understanding is dogs are fine to have, and people certainly love to see their dogs. Runners and pacers are not permitted to have their dogs accompany them during the run, except for the very end coming into the rock. They can certainly run in with the dog at the rock, but they're not permitted to accompany them at other spots. At the aid stations, this is not just true of dogs. This is also true of kids. This is true of crew members. This is true of everybody. The aid station, the person that's in charge of the aid station has the authority to ask you to move, basically. That person is in charge of the safety and the welfare of the runners that are coming through. And so while your dogs are permitted to be there as long as they're under control, if for some reason the people at the aid station feel like, the volunteers at the aid station and the volunteer captain feels like there's a necessity for you to move your dog a little further away, maybe there's another runner that doesn't feel safe around your dog, maybe there's another dog there. So just be aware that you may be asked to move a little further away if you do have a dog or a kid, for that matter, at the aid station. If Dale, if I've misrepresented anything, please chime in. I'm sure there'll be clarification about that going out to all the runners this year as well. Let me see, there were a couple other questions that came in, and I want to make sure. Here's a good one, Rebecca. The person asks, how do I stay awake for 48 hours to crew? Or when and how do I get some rest?
Well, that's another thing I'd strongly recommend to crew people, is that they need to take care of themselves.
Yep.
Because if they don't get some sleep, then they get tired and grumpy and they snap at their runners, who's already tired and grumpy and doesn't need anybody snapping at them. So in order for you to do your best job as a crew person, you need to make sure, and I fell way short in this in the early years, I never remembered to eat anything until we were all done and we were on the road and we were on our way to the next aid station. And it's like, oh, I didn't have breakfast and it's past lunchtime, and that weighs on you too. You can get kind of grumpy if you get overly hungry, and I didn't feel hungry, but at the same time I wasn't eating. And in the early days after I would crew for Blake, then I would stay up all night with Dale at the finish line. So I didn't get much sleep, but it didn't actually do me any good, and I can't do it anymore. And I recognize that probably when I was younger, I couldn't do it either, but I didn't recognize that then. So I would recommend you get sleep and look at your schedule and where you're going to be. And can you sleep in your car, or will you go by your lodging, your tent, your wherever you're staying? Could you lie down for a few hours? Even if you can close your eyes for a few hours, it helps. And it's particularly important on some of those long drives that you're well rested. There's about 10,000 deer between Silverton and Ouray. And if you're going through there at dusk or dawn, you have to be so alert. And so there's lots of ways to get in trouble if you don't, as a crew person, take care of yourself and make sure you do get some sleep. Take turns with someone, skip an aid station and have someone else be the main person there, or just make sure you plan in some downtime in between aid stations.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Amaya, do you think, somebody asked us, and maybe this is something you can even think of back to when you were young, are there places in particular that you target where you get for yourself, and then maybe for your runner, but particularly for yourself as the crew, where you can get hot food and fresh drinks during the race?
Yeah, I think the 2 aid stations that we've mentioned that also have accommodations for children, like Telluride and Ouray, are both really great places to get honestly really yummy, fantastic meals and support the local businesses. And then also there's several places in Silverton when you make your way back to the town where you can get some nice food as well.
Yeah, good.
Although if it's nighttime, there's no open 24-hour things.
That's true.
That's a good point. You're not going to be able to pull into an all-night diner,
right?
Anywhere, not even in Telluride, not even in Ouray, and certainly not in Silverton. Faith, is there a particular restaurant or spot that you usually go into to grab something to eat or drink when you're out there during the run?
I would say in Silverton, I go to was it Golden Block Pizza, a little brewery that's right there. And then Ouray, there's that Thai food place. It's right down the road from.
Yassine knows the Thai food place.
I ate there like 3 times.
And then it's pretty close. Yeah, and then there was a place I went to in Telluride a few years ago. I actually don't remember what it was called, but Telluride has a lot of places on Yelp. So when in doubt, definitely check. I think there's a good burrito stand and Telluride I've gone to a couple of times. So definitely something at all of those aid stations.
Good point.
I'll also
good
jump
point.
in with a recommendation here.
Uh-huh.
We always go to a place called Taco Del Nar on the way to Telluride. It's in Ridgeway. It's like the perfect location, kind of in between places. People don't really go there. Now people will be going there, but give them some business. Amazing tacos in between on your way to Telluride.
That's a good point. The Hard Rock does not go through Ridgeway, but crew will go through Ridgeway. If you're going to be driving between Uray and Telluride, you have to go. Well, you don't have to go that way, but you'll probably go that way. That's the two-wheel drive way to get there, and that's definitely a great. That's definitely a great tip to go through there and grab food as well. Yeah, Yassine.
I'll add something. As you're heading towards Ridgeway, there. I'm kind of blanking on the name of it right now, but it's a hot springs resort place. And speaking of crew taking care of themselves, it's an outdoor soaking pool. They have like cold plunge, sauna. If you don't mind seeing a bunch of like naked people, I highly recommend it. I forget the name of it right now, but it's on the way to Ridgeway.
Orvis.
There you go, Orvis Hot Springs.
There's also the hot springs pool in Uray,
Yes,
and I would say it's probably best not to be naked in those hot springs. But that is another good family-friendly place that you can go. And another spot during the day that would be a great place to go with kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yassine, there are lots of different spots, lots of different aid stations where crew have access. There are a few that don't. Was there any place that your crew could have gone, but you told them not to go to? Are there any crew access aid stations that you skipped, that you had your crew skip as a runner?
Let's see. I'm trying to remember here. I had them go to Cunningham, was the first one, going counterclockwise. Then certain select group of my crew went to Animas Forks, and then like I said, my wife and some other friends went straight to Uray, and then another friend met me at Telluride, and then another friend met me at Chapman, and that was it. I was pretty kind of bare bones with in terms of them. I felt kind of bad too. I didn't want them like driving all over Creation on all these back roads and waiting around forever. I wanted to have them have a good experience in the San Juans as well, and not just be standing around. So I wanted them to enjoy being in. They saw a couple moose on the way to Cunningham. They saw a couple bears, and that was a big deal. Like my daughter was like, "Oh my God, there's a bear, there's a moose," super fun. And I wanted it to be, an enjoyable experience, not like waiting around for like 10 hours for me to like shuffle out of the wilderness and then like shuffle back into the wilderness, So I couldn't have asked for a better crew. They all, took care of themselves. Even when they were sleeping in the parking lot of Telluride aid station, they were taking care of themselves so they could take care of me. It's like, in the airplane, when it loses cabin pressure, they say, parents, put on your mask first, then take care of your kids. We are the kids out there as the runners, and the crew are the parents.
Yep, absolutely. It's a good analogy. Rebecca, you mentioned this last year was the first time that as a crew person, you went out to Sherman. Was this the first time that Blake had crew at Sherman, or were there just other people?
Pretty
that were
much.
there?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's sometimes had a pacer come out and meet him. So, a friend would drive a runner over there over Cinnamon Pass. And so there would be someone there.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have anything other than his drop bag, but they could help him out.
Yeah. So what did you think? So you said you took the long way around.
I did. Yeah.
Do you remember how long it took?
I want to say 4 hours. It was a long drive.
I think 4 hours might be underestimating. I think that might be underestimating how long it takes. I guess it depends on where you're talking about.
No, I went from Silverton. I didn't go to Cunningham because the last time I tried to go to Cunningham, wait for the shuttle bus was so long, and
Mhm.
people were missing their runners. And it's such a brief aid station because most people just go in and out really quickly.
In that
So,
direction, in the
yeah,
counterclockwise
yes,
direction
right.
last year.
This is
Yeah,
last
this
year's direction, so
yeah,
not pertinent to this year's run,
right.
but so I left probably around 7, and I drove all the way around, to Uray and way out there on the road that's been closed. And there was some hold up, we had to study that in advance because that road's 550's been closed a lot. And
Mhm.
but it did take a really long time. In fact, I remember on my way back after seeing him in Sherman, it got dark on the way back before I made it back to Uray. So
Wow.
yeah, so it was neat to see because I know all those people out there work so hard, and I've never seen their aid station and never got to see them in action, and that was really cool. They have a lot of people there, and they just do a really, really good job, and they're really invested in. No,
Yeah.
all of our aid station people are like that, but I've never been out to Sherman, so it was fun to get there for once.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have gone over the Cinnamon Pass Road and twice, and it's just not really an experience I want to repeat.
Right. Right. I understand that. Amaya, you ever crew out, go out to Sherman to crew? No, you have not. Faith, I don't think you've ever gone out there to crew, have you?
I believe I escorted a pacer out there one time, but it was
Yep.
probably more work than it was worth. But you got your pacers.
You know, I will speak up as a runner that Sherman, especially in the other direction, I've never been. I've never been. I am not yet old enough to trade out a pacer in the counterclockwise direction at Sherman. You have to be 60 to have a pacer prior to animus in that direction. This year, 2024, we're going clockwise. And so Uray is the earliest that most people can pick up a pacer. Runners 60 and older can pick up a pacer earlier, could start with a pacer if they'd like. The only time that I would have had a pacer trade-off would have been in the clockwise direction. It's around 75 miles. And I will say that it really is an awesome spot to pick up a fresh pacer because whoever is pacing you in to Sherman in that direction has just come over handies. So that pacer can be pretty tired. Not only have they come over handies, but they've had to do that entire Burroughs, that entire road from Burroughs down to Sherman, which is where I am in the pack. It's in broad daylight in the morning, and so the sun is starting to beat down. So it is a great place to trade out, but I always feel guilty asking pacers to trade off there, and I've never asked crew to be there for any other reason, just because it is a long way. I'll say, in my opinion, if your crew wants to go out, or if you want them to go out, as Rebecca said, you're going to see an awesome aid station in action. You're going to see some amazing runners coming through, but it is a lot of hours for just a few minutes with your runner. And don't feel guilty as a runner. Don't as a crew, don't feel guilty if you decide not to go out there. As long as your runner knows not to expect you, your runners are going to be very well taken care of at that aid station. Very well taken care of.
And there are a lot of mosquitoes at that aid station also.
Good point. Good
It's
point.
tall grass.
Yeah.
Get that deep.
Yeah. Someone in the chat's asking any recommendations on how to get a pacer to Sherman without crew. Well, they can walk.
There are actually,
If the pacer,
Parachute.
Good, Faith.
just if they go there ahead of time and you do a little recon, then they should be able to just themselves there. But you will have to drive them. Somebody's going to have to drop them off there unless they want to leave a car to pick up 2 days later.
in my
Good, Rebecca.
experience, there are a lot of crews that always go to Sherman. They love driving over Cinnamon Pass and going to Sherman, and they're always happy to throw another person in their car. So if you can find in advance someone who's going to be doing that and who might have room for an extra person, that would probably be the best way.
Yeah. The other thing that I've done is, I mean, if a pacer, if you're trading off pacers, that means you're dropping off a pacer there at that aid station. So if the pacer who's going to start at that station drives to Sherman, then hands the keys off to the pacer that just finished with you, then they drive back. So that would be that's how you do it. Somebody's driving it in, somebody's driving it back. You just have to make sure that whoever it is either comfortable with the long drive they're going to have to take to do it two-wheel, or is comfortable driving over Cinnamon Pass. And that's one I would not do for the first time during Hard Rock. I'd get out there and drive Cinnamon, try it out first before Hard Rock happens, in my opinion.
I would do that too.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
make sure you're rested before you drive.
Right. Well, the pacer who's coming into that aid station doesn't have to leave right away, right? They can
Right.
hang out there for a while.
Yeah.
The other thing that I have seen, to answer that question a little bit further, the other thing that I've seen is that talk to the aid station captain ahead of time, but some people will volunteer at an aid station for a while until their runner comes in, and then they'll leave with that runner. And as long as the aid station captain knows that they've only got that person for, however many hours until the runner comes in, then, they can lend a hand for a while helping out. And then that way your pacer's already in place. And if they've ridden out with the aid station crew, when they go to set up the aid station, they're there for a long time before your runner comes in, because those aid stations get set up well in advance that day typically. But that's another way to get people out there. Looking to see what other questions we've got. I don't want to miss anything, and I'm keeping an eye both on YouTube and on the questions that came in earlier. One of the questions that came in, and I'm just gonna, this may end up being how we wrap things up depending on other questions that come in. But someone's saying, if you could only give one bit of advice to a new crew team, what would it be? So Amaya, what would you say is the one piece of advice that you would give to a new crew team at Hard Rock?
This might be a few sentences of advice, maybe not.
It doesn't have to be one sentence, but one piece of advice.
Most important thing, I think, is to be easy on yourself, be flexible. Some things might go differently than you expect. You might make a mistake, and that's okay. It's very hard to make sure everything happens on time and perfectly. So just be easy on yourself. The second thing I would say is beware of the chair, especially in aid stations going into the night or in the night. Sometimes the chair is needed, but sometimes your runner needs a little bit of tough love and no blankets.
No blankets. Yeah. Rebecca, what do you think?
Well, I think I already gave all the ones I thought were most important.
Okay.
Taking care of yourself as a crew. Make sure you bring all clothing for all weather, because you're going to be there a long time and you will experience it all, and all your own food, because you don't eat out of the aid stations. And checklists are really helpful to make sure you don't forget, the last minute when they're leaving. Do you have your poles? Do you have your flashlight? Do you have your, your spot? Did you get your spot off your other pack? And it's so those.
Yeah.
Getting all that stuff written down, and because when you're doing a lot of stuff, it's easy to lose track of little details, and especially the tighter you get.
Yes, absolutely. Yassine, you mentioned that your crew, I think when you were listing off where your crew was, I think you mentioned Chapman, that you had them go out there.
Just one guy. Okay.
I promised the folks at Chapman that we would put in a pitch to encourage crew to go out there, because they don't get as many crew there as some of the, certainly not as many as you get at Telluride. And it's true that they have to walk up. They've got a little bit of a hike that they have to do to get up there. But what was it like from a runner's perspective, and how much did you appreciate having that crew person there with you at Chapman?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like that was a very strategic point to pick somebody up for that final 16 miles going counterclockwise. I happened to get down there just after sunrise, or a bit after sunrise, and they were great down there. The folks running the aid station, super funny, and they had great accommodations there. And I knew that the guy that was going to be pacing me, that he was going to have to hike in a ways to get there. So he kind of went in with like kind of a bare bones backpack that he could just hand off to my current pacer, and they could swap. And I knew that he had a cold brew waiting for me. So I kept thinking, like, just get to that cold brew, just get to that cold brew. And it wasn't too heavy for him to carry. But I would say too, just to add to what everybody else has said, just remember to like enjoy and have fun out there and connect with each other and not take it too seriously. Like I always tell people, like, remember, our lives are so good that we have to pay money to do this. Okay. Like let's not like, I did have an unfortunate thing at 100-miler once where a couple of my crew members kind of got into an argument. And I didn't know about this during the race while I was running, but I found out afterwards, and I was just like, oh man, really? I was like, that's not cool. That's not fun.
Yeah.
So, communicate, be good to each other, have fun, connect with other crews, and just remember, our life is good. We got to pay money to do this.
Absolutely. Faith, I think you're still there. If you can chime in, can you think of one piece of advice that you think you would like to give to new crew at Hardrock?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you great.
Okay, good. I'm not sure what happened to my camera, but yeah, I guess my biggest piece of advice is if there's more than one of you, try to rotate through sleep, rotate through eating. Just divide up tasks. Don't take everything on yourself. If you are alone, don't be afraid to ask other crew members, other people's crew. We're all a community and we're all willing to help each other. And I definitely think beware of the chair is a great piece of advice.
Yeah. I will, because she's my daughter, I'll brag on her. My proud, I've got lots of proud moments for my kids. One of my proudest moments was at Chapman Aid Station. She'd brought a pacer out to trade off, and at one point she saw me. She was there waiting for me when I came in. She was the only crew person there. She saw me when I came in, and at one point she looked at her watch and she said, "Dad, you've been here for 5 minutes. You've got to go now." And I love that. I love that I've raised her right, that she's willing to kick me out of the chair, kick me out of the aid station,
That's awesome.
which was absolutely fantastic. Next month's panel is going to be on, we're calling it training and physical preparation with 3 legends. We're very excited about that panel that we've got coming up, and I think Dale had a couple of things that he was going to talk about, but I don't know if we lost Dale or not. Dale, are you still with us? I don't think he is. So we really do hope. Oh,
Chris, I had one more thing I wanted to say. Give a shout out to aid station people, and also to let crew know to make sure to follow the directions given by the aid station people. They put a lot of thought and prep work into their aid stations, and they have them set up to flow really well. And as a crew, when you come in, they're your host, and so you want to make sure that you fit into their system and work with them. And they've often, in the last few years, they'll often have someone just assigned to you for your crew, and they'll go get you things, and they can really be, stuff you didn't bring, food and drinks and things like that. And just be sure and thank them.
I worked at an aid station last year, and it was amazing. I was at the Animas Forks aid station, and the concierge service is what they call it. I think most of the aid stations, the aid stations where they get enough volunteers, which I think is pretty much all of them at this point, are using that. And you're exactly right, Rebecca. When the runner comes in, there's a volunteer assigned to that runner to take care of his or her needs. And shuttle food to them, bring them what they need. Sometimes that involves untying shoes, taking off socks, rubbing the feet, whatever sometimes it takes, those volunteers are willing to do. We did get one other question that I want to make sure we address. Person says, Tara on the chat says, I watched a recap video this week with a runner suggesting having a crew helping at in-town aid stations and another crew helping at the others. Any thoughts on this strategy? I will say, as a runner, I mentioned that Faith was with me out at Chapman. She was there because my mother, who has crewed me for all my Hard Rocks, had been there at Telluride and needed to bring a pacer back. And I didn't want her driving back and forth and back and forth. So Faith slept while my mother was in Telluride, and then they passed each other on the road while my mom came back to Uray to sleep for a few hours, and Faith could get my last pacer out there to Chapman. So I think if you've got the ability to trade off crew like that, I think that's a great way to make sure that nobody is driving too tired out there on the road. So I think that's a great strategy as well. Before we go, does anybody else have anything else that you wanted to make sure that got said? Well, I see that we do have Dale back with us. Dale, you want to address the crowd here?
He's gone again.
He's gone again. Dale is an enigmatic figure in Hard Rock lore, and
pop in and pop out. All
exactly right. Exactly right. Well, again, next month we're going to be talking to some legends, specifically about physical training and physical preparation for Hard Rock. Hopefully you guys are already training. If you're in Hard Rock, hopefully you're already getting those miles in. But we're going to have some folks on that are experts to answer your training questions, your preparation questions. I know a lot of people are concerned about the altitude. A lot of people are concerned about the elevation. I can tell you as a Floridian, those are a couple of things I was very concerned about my first Hard Rock. And so we're going to have some folks on that are going to answer questions about that. So feel free to start sending those questions in. Please watch your communications from Hard Rock. And again, thank you so much, Rebecca Clark, Amaya Koblenz, Yassine Boone, Faith Twiggs. We really appreciate you folks being on here to help our people prepare for Hard Rock. And hopefully we'll see you all in Silverton this summer. That's where Hard Rockers belong.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.